It doesn't start when you're already in the relationship. It starts much earlier than that. Sometimes it starts on the very first date. You sit there and something small happens. So small, you almost don't even notice it. The bill comes, and somehow you're the one paying or splitting or covering just this time. And it feels normal. You tell yourself, well, I was there too. I also hate. Why wouldn't I pay? And nothing feels wrong. Not yet. Because in your mind, you're being fair. You're being mature. You're being a good partner. But what you don't see is that something just got defined. Very quietly. A dynamic. And from that moment on, that dynamic doesn't really change. It just grows. You become the one who makes things happen. If you want to go somewhere, you pay. If you want to travel, you figure it out. Because if you don't, it simply doesn't happen. And at first, it doesn't even feel like a burden. It feels like you're choosing it. Like you're making things possible. Like you're building something together. But look closer. Were you really building something together? Or were you the only one making it exist? Because slowly, without even realizing, you start caring more. Not just financially, but in ways that are harder to see. You're the one who plans, the one who organizes, the one who solves, the one who sustains. And they just adapt to what you provide. They don't stop you. They don't question it. They don't resist it because for them, it works. And the more it works, the more natural it becomes. Until one day you look around and everything you built, everything you paid for, everything you made possible is being lived by both of you but carried only by you. And that's when something starts to feel off. Not loud, not obvious, just off because from the outside, it still looks like a normal relationship. But inside, you're exhausted, emotionally, mentally, financially, and you still can't fully explain why. And inside your own head, you're not calling it abuse, you're calling it love, commitment, loyalty. Because admitting the truth would mean facing something much more painful. That you weren't building something together. You were carrying someone and they let you. Not by accident, but because it was convenient. And this is the part that hurts the most. Because it wasn't forced. You gave, you offered, you tried to make it work. But what you didn't realize is that the more you gave, the more it became expected, not appreciated, expected. And once something becomes expected, it's no longer valued. It's just used. And that's when the shift happens, subtle, quiet, almost invisible. But everything changes from there. And the strange part is, you don't see it while you're living it. Not clearly you're inside it. So everything feels normal, or at least justifiable. There's always a reason, always an explanation. They don't have money right now. They're going through something. It's just temporary, and you believe it. Because you want to believe it. Because questioning it would mean questioning everything. So you don't. You keep going. You keep adjusting. You keep making things work. And life keeps moving. Until one day something small happens. Something so simple, but it lands differently. And for a second, you pause. Not because something big went wrong, but because something didn't feel right anymore. And you can't explain why, so you ignore it. At first, but then it happens again and again. And now you can't unsee it completely. Not fully, but enough to start noticing patterns. Not loud ones, quiet ones. The kind that were always there, but you never stopped to look at them this way, like realizing that things only moved. When you moved, that plans only existed. When you created them, that stability only stayed because you were holding it. And suddenly a question starts forming very quietly, almost uncomfortable. What happens if I stop? Not forever, just for a moment. What happens if I don't fix it? If I don't pay? If I don't carry it this time? Does it still exist? Or does everything just stop? And that question changes something inside you. Because now you're not just feeling anymore. You're observing. And when you start observing, you start seeing not everything at once, but enough to realize that maybe you weren't just helping. You were sustaining something that depended on you more than you thought. And even then, you still don't call it wrong. You don't call it unfair. You don't call it anything. You just feel it. A quiet discomfort that grows without making noise. And the hardest part is this. Nothing looks broken from the outside. There's no big explosion, no obvious damage. Just a slow realization that something has been unbalanced for a long time. And you were too close to see it clearly until now. And this is where something begins to shift. Not outside, nothing changes there. Yet, but inside you, something is no longer the same because once you see it, even if it's just a little, you can't go back to not seeing. You can still stay, you can still try, you can still give, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. Because now there's awareness, and awareness changes everything. Not immediately, not all at once, but quietly. You start questioning things you never questioned before. Not them at first. Yourself. Why am I the one always adjusting? Why does this only work? When I make it work, why do I feel responsible for something that isn't mine alone? And those questions don't leave anymore. They stay in the background, in your decisions, in your silence, in the moments you would normally just continue, and slowly, you stop reacting the same way. Not dramatically, not aggressively, just differently. You pause more. You give less automatic yeses. You start noticing where you end and where the other person should begin. And that's a line you didn't even know you had lost before, because somewhere along the way you thought love meant giving more, being more, holding more. But now you're starting to understand something deeper. Love was never supposed to feel like carrying someone. It was supposed to feel like walking with someone side by side, not ahead, not behind, and definitely not alone. And that realization changes the way you see everything. Not just them, but yourself. Because now it's no longer about what they did or didn't do. It becomes about something else. What you allowed without even realizing. Not out of weakness, but out of belief. Belief in the relationship, belief in the future, belief in something real. And there's no shame in that. But there's responsibility in what you do with that awareness now. Because once you understand that you can't build something alone, you also understand something else. You're not here to save anyone. You're not here to carry a relationship. You're not here to prove your worth by how much you can give. And that changes the standard completely. Because now you don't just ask, do I love this person? You start asking, is this being built together? Is this mutual? Is this balanced? And if it's not, you don't immediately fix it anymore. You see it. And that's power, quiet power. The kind that doesn't need to fight, to prove, or to convince. Because it knows that love without reciprocity is not love. It's effort without return, and effort alone can't sustain anything real, And maybe this is the moment where everything becomes clear. Not about them, but about you, about what you deserve, about what you will and will not carry anymore. Because now you understand something that changes everything. You don't need to give more to be loved. You need to be met where you are. And if that doesn't happen, you don't lose yourself trying to make it happen anymore. You choose differently, and that's where your freedom begins. Not when the other person changes, but when you do. And if this feels familiar, if you've been in something that felt like this, then maybe this isn't just a video. Maybe this is a moment to pause, to see clearly, and to start choosing differently for yourself. And if you're on that path, if you're starting to see things in a new way, stay here, because this is exactly what we talk about. On this channel, not just understanding what happened, but rebuilding yourself after it, one step at a time.